For those of you that don't know me, my name's Matt Toulson. I started as the Sportstec country manager in New Zealand in January. Come from a bit of a user's background. I basically started using Game Breaker when I was about 18 years old, and Jason Healy came to my school and taught me a little bit about it, and had a bit of a break for a couple of years using another system, and then started back in 2009. So I've been asked to talk about visualization of data, and it's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about, because the use of numbers and I guess information really means nothing unless it's presented in a meaningful way. When I talk about visualization of data, really we're talking reporting. I suppose visualization of data is a bit of a, fancy name for it, if you like. I also think this visualization of data, the common themes during the week have obviously been the coach and analyst relationship, and really to start any reporting you've got to have good data. So I think that builds a way almost for analysts and coaches to start developing, talking and figuring out exactly what they want and start designing that. And I guess what Colin's just presented is pretty impressive in terms of having a clear goal of where you want to get to and be able to design all your stuff around that. And it's something I've never seen in terms of a rugby sense. So well done to them on that. Just want to talk through basically the flow of data to information to knowledge. A little bit about why we're doing visualization of data, and where Sportscode are in our past and present, and where we're sort of looking to head to in the future. So this is my sort of little framework, if you like. So at the top we've got our ones and zeros, which is how I sort of look at data. Got our information, which is really unlocking that data, and that flows across into our knowledge. Basically, just want to talk a little bit about each particular one. So obviously, with the data side of things, really I see if it's rubbish in, it's going to be rubbish out when you get further down the track. So really, the whole point of this slide is making sure your data, you understand it really well, and obviously know where you're heading with things. It's a challenging space, that the data side of things, because you've obviously got teams coding themselves, you've got third-party data such as Opta or Champion data coming in, and making sense of that and actually knowing exactly what that means and then being able to report on it is a bit of a challenge. You've also got analysts out there who are doing their own coding on top of that Opta data, which is a good thing as well. And one of my notes here was talking about putting extra information in, such as who you're playing, what round, that type of stuff. And I think what Colin's done is pretty impressive. So the information stage, I see that as really unlocking the data, and it's basically a collection of facts. So it's taking the ones and zeros, which may be line out scrums or centre passes, and putting them into some type of category, so you can obviously start using them in some way. And really the next stage, obviously the knowledge stage, is probably the hardest. I guess now that we know something over in the information side, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to use it? And visualization of data, I think, really fits into two spots. One in between obviously the data and the information, and then again between the information and the knowledge, because it's really how we present that to athletes or to coaches in meaningful ways that really they get to absorb that information. Just I guess my simple analogy for this type of diagram is really like building a house. At the foundation level, we've got our data, and if you don't have that real solid platform, as you start putting up the walls, the information, and eventually the roof with the knowledge, you get to the stage where if you haven't got it well laid out at that foundation level, you start wanting to add an extra room in 2 weeks' time, a couple of rounds down the track, for example. The design specs for the house weren't made to obviously withstand that. The foundations were meant to withstand that extra information at the top. So I think that real planning stage and talking through with analysts and working through that. Just a couple of examples. I spent a year working in a corporate environment and reporting, and one example I had was a lady came to me with a report that she'd been working on for a couple of weeks and looked really good. And she said, "Oh, look, I think there's some ways we can make it better." So I started looking into it and looking through it, and went and looked at the data, and there was an Excel sheet with some data on this side and over that side, and then I found out they were missing a couple of days and it wasn't validated and all that type of stuff. And that was a classic example of really asking good questions at the knowledge level, but the data wasn't able to support that. And another example, I guess, before New Zealand Rugby came across to us, the previous provider they used, there was 26 different types of pass in rugby, and I can only really think of 3 off the top of my head. So really, they had a floor plan for a hotel complex, and we had a little shed in the corner that was our information, our data. So what I'm not suggesting here is that you shouldn't have lots of data, but just I think it's really key that you understand that data and make sure you have got a well-laid foundation and keep your house in order, if want of a better word. Just want to talk about, I guess, why we're up here. I'm up here talking about visualization of data. We're in an age where we're almost in data overload. We've got stats from whatever you're coding, as I said, third party, even stuff like GPS and heart rate, and really it's about understanding that information and filtering out what's important and what's not. Report ownership, I think, is probably the biggest one for me, is that sometimes we just get in the case of throwing out reports. Here's a report, take it to a coach, have a look at this, what do you think? I'll go back and sit in my office and wait until you come ask me a question about it. So it's that real managed approach that the coach or whoever asking for that report has got some real solid ownership around it. And once again, I saw that in a corporate environment where we'd do a performance report for one particular team, and then the other team would come bang on our door and say, well, where's ours? But they haven't actually figured out what they want to know yet. All they know is that they want a report to be like everyone else, if you like. So last one is interactive reporting. So I've got an example that I've sort of worked on. I guess there's sort of that mix. Dashboards, I guess, a bit of a buzzword, if you like. But what I see dashboarding as is a bit more interactive reporting. So where a user can go in and actually change some variables themselves. It's not just the numbers put in front of them. And they can obviously figure out what combinations they want, and hopefully that's sort of evident in my example, which I'll talk you through. So just going on, talk a little bit about sports code, and I suppose where we've come from. I started with V8 in 2009, and we used statistical windows. And as Philip said in his opening address, they were pretty painful in some cases. And obviously we did use the feature where you could obviously push it out to a code window, but still not really that easy to use, and I think it turned a lot of analysts off going down that path of writing stats. Big one for me was no links to video, and I'll, I guess we'll talk about that as we move through into version 9. External reporting's still a big thing, I think. I think for really complex data sets, it's still useful to use that. I'm not saying obviously everything can be done within sports code, because there is a lot of complex data out there that you do get from external sources as well. Opta data and champion data reports, that's really third-party reporting. And once again, very useful information, graphs, all that type of stuff. But what we've sort of found in New Zealand is that that information that's coming through on them sometimes isn't passed across to the timelines, and therefore coaches can't go and basically find what they want to know off those particular reports. So once again, get some understanding around those. Traditionally, I've seen the matrix as being the only viewing tool, and that in itself, matrix has got some great features, but in certain cases, players can go and then get really confused, and I've got an example of that. And finally, the code window is mainly seen as being input only, so obviously no ability to output, which is something we obviously all wanted. Just a little bit about my time. So I was with the Chiefs for 5 years as their technical analyst, and we did a lot of external reporting, a lot of opposition analysis, just like anyone. And I spent a lot of time, I guess, taking that hotel complex foundation and trying to put it into some meaningful way. And it was sometimes I really enjoyed because there was the ability to unlock some really good information in there. So this is just an example of a statistical window that we used. This is just an in-game type scenario. There's nothing really too fancy in here. And I'm not going to claim this one. This was actually built by Jamie Ryan, who was a sport person at that time. Because obviously a new user coming into Sportscode, this was pretty daunting at the time. Just an example of a Excel-based report that I'd do after the game, and really it's just highlighting highs and lows in certain areas, and that would allow coaches to see where players had higher loadings, for example, or obviously where more people have missed tackles, which is a key part. And is this type of report now that, if we step forward a little bit to version 9, is this, I think now without a doubt, this would be done inside Sportscode rather than exporting out. Once again, another example of just a line-out type output that I used to do. Big problem here was that the coaches would get this and then they'd have to go off and find, particularly if they want the attacking half line-outs where they threw to the middle, they'd have to go off and then find them. So once again, you can see here I'm obviously leading up to how version 9 could be beneficial in this area. And lastly, just an example of a typical matrix that New Zealand Rugby get. This is from the Opta data. And you'll see for a player coming in, all they want to do is find their tackles or their passes or that type of thing. It can be very, very daunting. And agreed, there is ways to limit those matrices down and stuff like that, but on the face of it, for players, that's pretty daunting. I guess to just talk a little about version 9, a lot of the stuff you guys already know and Colin's already talked about, but really in-button scripting's become a lot easier for people to use. Report mode, obviously the big one is being able to link straight to video, so that's really that one-stop shop. Action buttons, the make movie toggle, I think for some people's relatively unknown, but once again very useful. Alternate names is a big one, being able to load CSV files from the background without having to have a lot of information in there. I've put tooltip in there. It's probably one you may have not seen. It just occurred to me the other day. I was building an example for this presentation. I thought it'd be really cool just to be able to hover over a particular button and have it tell the user what it's gonna do, and obviously button IDs. And the benefits behind this, obviously for end users, is they can build a report that's specific to their team. They can have their team logos on it. They can obviously put their motivational statements, that type of thing. Coaches have some flexibility in reporting. We'll claim that we're saving trees because we're not printing out as much. And really the ability to look at single games all over databases if you wanted to. And most of all, I think for players, and you'll see my example in a minute, is instead of having a complicated matrix, just a real basic output window that they can obviously look at. I think for the analyst, it becomes, obviously I mentioned, easier to understand the scripting side of things, all within one software, so you're not exporting information out and creating that data management issue, as Colin was talking about. And once they're designed, they're relatively maintenance free, so don't have to, can leave them on a coach's desktop, don't have to print out a report or send him a reporter, etc. A big one for me is also interactive coding, so the ability to have input and output on the same window, so you can almost see as things unfold. This is a bit of an example of, I've just designed this up myself, and really what this is designed to do is just basically a basic player report. And we've got, I guess, 3 areas. There's obviously some attack stats for the individual, some defence, some errors, and team stats down the bottom. And really what we want to create here is some focused viewing. So in my experience, we had a lot of players that would just go and look at their own stuff, just go and look at their own events, and they wouldn't go look at team events and that was really something that was quite frustrating. Just to talk through some of the features, so up the top here, I've got the two teams. Both of these are just renames and obviously individuals. Down the side here, I've got once again, renames, which are CSV files, which are driven from the labels that Opta put into the code. And what this does, I talked about, I guess, the interactive side of things, is anyone can come in and change these labels to what they want. And the same with the team stats down the side here. In the middle here, we've just got a basic count and show, so that's just a toggle or action button. And down the right-hand side here, we've got, I guess, shows potentially the wrong terminology here, but what this is going to do is it's basically going to be a show or hide as to what gets displayed onto the screen over here. And the number, so the 19 kicks in play, will then be divided up into what areas of the field they've come from. So let's step you through as this, I guess, evolves. So obviously we've got our video up here that we can watch directly. We've got our our tooltip here, and also I've got a few of these hide buttons turned down. So we can do individuals, or we can do the whole lot as one if we want to. As it builds, I've now selected an opposition to look at. That's basically put two of their images in there, and that's just using the opacity script, and it's also put their team stats down the bottom here. And once again, I've got my rename with every team in the competition with the individual's name there as well, so they can obviously come and select who they're playing against. And then this is again towards the final product, so now we've got the ability to compare two players. Once again, be great to have averages in here, that type of thing, all about how you design your data. And once again, the screen here, the field here is broken down by these team stats. You'll notice down the bottom we've also got two toggle buttons where you can select whether you want the team or whether you want the individual stats to appear on the screen, and obviously choosing what team you want to display. So just a bit of an example that I whipped up. And this is just finally looking at it from a database point of view. So obviously the number is a lot higher in here, and you've got overall tackle percentages for the individual. Just talking a little bit about the future. So obviously version 10 is just around the corner, and where we go to from here, not really a lot in terms of the output window side of things. In version 10, I guess it's a slight terminology shift from HTML export to share, and that's the new icon for that. And this here is just a bit of an example of an output window that could potentially be put across to an iPad, and it seems pretty common that that's what people are doing. Once again, this is a fairly common scenario for a lot of people now, obviously using iCoders either within the ground or externally over ADSL to plug information in, and then really about distributing that information out again to whoever you need to. Just, I guess, my thoughts on where reporting in sports code could go. So I guess I'll sort of speak from a rugby point of view. More emphasis on player reporting and trending, and this could lead to things like, say, a filter, like you would do in Excel, where you could actually get the buttons to put the person who's leading at the top, that type of thing. Team ratings, obviously Colin's doing that very well in rugby, not something we do so well. Just want to expand your thinking a little bit with what you could do with output windows. So I've got in-game marketing or media opportunities, whether you could get to the point where within your stadium you have everyone on a smartphone with an output window loaded up, and that could be their statistics to improve the experience, if you like. And graphing's obviously another thing we'd obviously look into doing, and that's probably one of the main reasons why people potentially take data out into Excel. New scripts, once again, we're driven by what users want to do. New action buttons, some ones that come to mind for me are a print or a save to PDF, for example. But there's really sky's the limit in that area. And perhaps we were talking last night over dinner, maybe some more dedicated report features, and one of the common things that's coming back is having the code window and the report window in the same window, and having players going in and being able to edit that rather than just having a report mode where it's just actually a report mode, doesn't have any other features in it. So there's some options there. Just in summary, obviously we've talked about this flow of information, data to information to knowledge. Let's have a bit of a think about that. Report ownership's a big one for me. If you're going to write a report, it's got to be for a specific reason, and make sure that obviously teams and that coaches buy into that. My experience in New Zealand, the output windows are very popular at the moment, and teams are slowly building them more and more. And judging by what we've seen today, we've got a bit of a way to go, but it's really provide that link. The feedback was that the matrix was too busy, and our team's using output windows to fulfill that gap, so it's really good. Really just think possibly are endless in the output windows. Hopefully some of the stuff we showed you today may be a little bit new, but with if statements and that type of thing, and having things appear and disappear off an output window, you can make it quite interactive. And I guess finally, I challenge you next time that if you're wanting some reporting, or you think or get asked to write a report, just think of the options available in Sports Code before you go exporting information out. So that's me. That's my contact information. Feel free to get in touch, and if you're ever over in New Zealand, I'm sure I could take you for a road trip around our beautiful countryside. It's not all hobbits, I promise you. So, thank you.